Good morning. You guys are ready to start? I'm great. I'm great. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is just a little bit after 10 o'clock. It looks like we have a quorum now, so we can start our Economic Development Committee. And we will start with roll call. You'll be
Roll call, Councilmember Moreno,
present.
Councilmember Morrell, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Green. Present. Councilmember Thomas.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now if we can get an approval of the minutes, if someone will make the motion, please. Moved by Councilmember Green and seconded by Councilmember Morrell. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks. The minutes are approved. 4 yeas, no nays. We have one item on our agenda. It's discussion of ordinance calendar number 33908 concerning provisions governing the use, control, and abandonment of shopping carts within the city of New Orleans. I'm going to turn it over to the lead author, Councilmember Thomas, in just 1 second. But I'll say this, when you read this, it looks like, this is kind of a simple type of ordinance, but it is something that has grown to be a big concern in New Orleans East and other neighborhoods as well, with grocery carts just being abandoned and dumped in all parts of town. And this was actually an issue that many years ago had been discussed, and there was even an ordinance that was going to be moving forward, but for some reason or another, it didn't. But this has grown to be a consistent problem once again, and there are some very useful policy measures that we can put in place to help rectify this process. And so thank you, Councilmember Thomas, for teaming up to work on this. You're the lead author, and I'll turn it over to you.
No, thank you, and Sadie and Andrew of your staff. One thing we know, this body functions at its highest and best use. Our city functions at its best when everyone is on the same page working together. But this is also an indication of the power of the community, and that collectively, whether it's legislation or whether it's programming, whether it's issues, collectively, the brain power, the volunteer power, and the community power within the people who live in our community, that collective is one of the most powerful things we can use. So I want to thank Mr. Neely, Ms. Kelly, the New Orleans East Matters Group, council member, because without the citizens in this community, we have no chance. No matter what the area, whether it's shopping carts, carjacking, crime, or economic development, without the people in the community who buy in, there's nothing that's sustainable here. So this is, you're absolutely correct, Madam President, in that this was something that most municipalities, urban communities have dealt with before. It's something that has been a problem before. But this seems to be like COVID now. Maybe we ought to call them COVID carts, right? Because everybody who has a shopping cart or something to carry groceries or something to carry goods now, it's, to me, it's the last place they wind up is back at the business where they started. We see a certain element in our community that use them to take stuff. They use them to take stuff out of our homes, our garages, our property. We see carts from businesses that wind up not only miles away, but sometimes you see a cart from a certain business actually across town. So for me, it's easy. I don't know, like you, why this is as complicated as it is, because if it's your property, then the ultimate responsibility ought to be for you and your property. And this is what I know, Madam President, and what many of the residents know. I remember as a kid growing up at old A&P and Puglis in the Lower Ninth Ward when their employees walked through the neighborhood gathering their carts. I also know, if you want to really keep it real, when I go to the stores outside of the parish, they have employees that work for the business go around gathering their carts before they get off the premises. So I don't know why, the Walmart, the Winn-Dixie, the Rouse's, or whatever stores, the Home Depots, I don't know why they wouldn't treat Orleans Parish people in carts the same way they do in the other parishes. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen at the other parishes, but it's a rare and unnatural occurrence when we see the amount of carts that like they are proliferated through our community. So I'm I'm hoping now that this ordinance gives the municipality and it places a responsibility back on where the carts start and where they emanate from, because they don't belong in our subdivisions, they don't belong in our streets, they don't belong in our neighborhoods. They belong back where the businesses who have them to use to transport those goods up and down aisles into carts and back within the store. So
You know, what's also interesting too is, and Terrence actually discovered this, is, there's this technology that if you get a cart that goes past a certain line, that the cart's supposed to stop. But there are stores that don't have that technology functioning. They have the technology, but it's just, at the store and it's broken. Just to kind of break down what the legislation does, it provides for new regulations and fines for shopping cart owners who do not secure their carts on their own properties. It provides that shopping cart owners, which of course are the businesses, shall be responsible for securing their carts with technology, security, as Councilmember Thomas mentioned, making sure there's someone who's going to be rounding up the carts. If shopping carts are found in the public right of way, that means that if code enforcement, someone calls 311 that there's a shopping cart in the public right of way, that is a $250 fine per cart to the business. If the city has to remove the carts from the public property, the owner is responsible for any of the costs that the city incurs to remove that shopping cart. And it also provides for the requirement of signage on every shopping cart so that we know who owns a particular shopping cart as well. And it also requires that there is this technology, as I mentioned, where carts can't go past the boundaries of the store. It's that electronic monitoring, the wheel lock technology, and that, most importantly, that technology is operable as well. So not just to have the technology, but to make sure it's operable. And I too, Councilmember Thomas, want to thank New Orleans East Matters, Terrence and Aisha, Komalita, Tangi, all of you all for working so hard on many initiatives, but for really creating the legislation around this one for what we're discussing today.
well, thank you. I mean, that the pink lady had 10 carts at one time. Now, I don't know how much carts cost, but it would seem to me that the businesses whose cart it belonged to would have been interested in getting their carts back so they didn't have to buy new carts. So to me, it really doesn't make economic sense. So I'm gonna, our speakers are Miss Aisha is our first speaker. Ms. Kelly.
Good morning.
Good
My name is
morning.
Aisha Kelly, and I'm a resident of District E. And I just want to say, I would really like to say that I appreciate every one of you who took time to take into consideration this important issue that we're not only seeing in District E, but throughout the city of New Orleans. So again, I just wanted to say thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you valuing our opinion, and we look forward to working with you all closely throughout your tenure, and we just appreciate everything you've done thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carmelita McKee.
I'm going to echo Aisha. Thank you all so much for your time and working with us. Through the task force, we strove to build partnerships with our city and state leaders, and we hope that we're doing that. It's so important, the ordinance, to get the shopping carts removed because they are a quality of life issue, not only in District E, but throughout the city. Some of the research we did, the food manufacturing industry in Washington, DC, they said this is an $800 million loss globally, annually for businesses. And that's a lot of money if you have a small mom and pops. And all of us have walked into a Dollar General or Family Dollar having to buy laundry detergent, bleach, milk, and have to carry that in your arms because there were no shopping carts. That's happened to me more than once.
Right.
And that's a quality of life issue, especially if you're an elderly senior in the neighborhood who can't do that because all the shopping carts are gone. Shopping carts are purchased multiple times by businesses throughout the nation because they are, it's such a big problem. And one of the things we did not mention, but this idea came to me is that within our 311 system, could we add shopping carts, a 311 for if someone finds a shopping cart, because the city right now does not have the means to round them all up. But if citizens could call in a shopping cart, maybe we can track some of that and pick that up like that. That's just, another idea. And I just wanted to also say that in California, Clovis, Fresno, Madera, they have an app where citizens can let them know that there's a shopping cart. They also have an 800 number about shopping carts. So those are just still some ideas that are out there. But thank you all so much, because all we do is for New Orleans, and particularly New Orleans East. And we thank you for working with us.
Thank you, thank you. I wish we had an 800 number instead of 800 carts throughout our neighborhood. Guys, I was so excited about this. I actually didn't start with comments from the dais. Councilmember Green, and then we'll get back to our speakers. Councilmember
Oh,
Green.
that's fine, Councilman. I could wait until the
Okay,
last two cards. That's
okay.
fine.
Ms. Tangi Wall.
Good morning to our distinguished panel here, our council. My name is Tangi Wall. I'm president of New Orleans East Matters Coalition. We are a nonprofit organization committed to working together with our city and state government in order to improve our overall quality of life. We work with the neighborhoods, the businesses, the schools, and the churches. I am in support of this ordinance, and I'm very proud of this task force because they are a part of our coalition and interested in really getting the jobs done. The shopping cart ordinance is so critical because it does not just impact our quality of life in New Orleans East, but the entire city of New Orleans. And as we all know, the abandoned carts can be seen anywhere, on the streets, on abandoned sites, on construction places. Just over the weekend, I spotted several. And also it encourages, the unhoused or homeless population to utilize them as a means of habitating at different corridors. Our corridors should not be habited by homeless individuals who just sit in a cart. It's a danger and it's a hazard. I've seen children take some of the abandoned carts and play with them. So that can also be a very critical area. The technology that this task force has really devised is a critical piece because it also ties in the responsibility of the owners of those. Identification of the carts is important. I know that with Save-A-Lot as well, at one time, they were trying to keep the baskets locked and beyond a certain point. But as Council Lady Moreno has said, unless that technology is functionable, it doesn't matter. So the locks on the baskets that prohibit any of the carts from leaving the site of those stores is a very important piece. And having the stores to embrace that, I think that we need to work in unison with them because they too have said the cost per cart can range anywhere between $100 over $400 per cart. So it does, as Carmelita mentioned, a staggering statistic of expense that they should not want to have to incur.
Thank you.
So I think that partnership is very important. Thank you. Support, please, the shopping carts ordinance. Thank you.
Ms. Greeley.
Shea Greeley, the sentiment is the same for all of the other members. I know I tried to be a devil's advocate on why the carts are being placed at the RTA stops and things of that nature. I experienced the technology at a Home Depot at Baton Rouge and it works. And so that's what I would like to say. The technology would work, but also some of the other preventative maintenance that I think we should consider to promote the rolling baskets that some of our underserved, like elderly and people who don't have transportation that do take the RTA, to have those types of baskets available for them. Also, just as we store bikes on the RTA, make that rolling basket available to store rolling baskets on the RTA as well, and make that be knowledgeable and a partnership with RTA so that people do not have to take the baskets from the stores, but have just our normal rolling cart and baskets that they can actually store on the RTA.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Kelly, I apologize. When I called you earlier, Ms. Greeley writes so good that it looked like Kelly. Right. and Mr. Terrence Neely.
Want you guys to bear with me. I'm a little bit nervous. My
All
first
right.
time speaking up here. I tried my best to work from the shadows as long as I could, but when your district councilman drops your name on the news and when your council president requests your appearance, you kind of, step out of the shadows and formally introduce yourself. Good morning. My name is Terrence Neely. I'm a resident of District E since 2018 when my wife and I purchased our first home. Originally born in New Orleans, but for the majority of my life, I grew up in Kenner until my wife helped me find my way back to the city. Our quality of life is diminishing, and we desperately need to get it back on track. In January, I joined this community organization, New Orleans East Matters. We have worked tirelessly with Councilman Oliver Thomas to change the overall narrative of District E. In just a few months' time, we've got numerous quality of life issues resolved, including bringing more light to the community. Let there be light. This shopping cart ordinance will help achieve a better quality of life and help establish the culture of cleanliness as my good friend Sage Michael is trying to implement. Shopping carts are being used all over the city by the unhoused community and individuals that feel entitled to remove these carts for personal use and further trash our city. In addition to transporting clutter, these abandoned shopping carts also pose as a safety hazard if it rolls into the streets, potentially causing roadway accidents. The proactive approach to this issue is to hold the producers of these shopping carts accountable for maintaining it and retaining their property. That is the sole purpose of this piece of legislation, and we look forward to the entire council's support. I want to personally thank Councilman Oliver Thomas, Council President Moreno for helping this ordinance get pushed. I would never have thought this simple idea would blossom into something of this magnitude that would change the trajectory of the city and move us forward to a brighter future.
And thank you. God bless you, man. We appreciate you. Councilmember Green.
I'd like to thank everyone who is here from New Orleans East Matters and who has been involved with not only this issue, but other quality of life issues. I'd like to add that in terms of shopping carts, to those who are responsible for taking them, many times children play in the shopping carts and they tip over and there are injuries that sometimes aren't recorded, but I know that they happen. And we've all seen a child around something like that too. So in addition to the economic component of it, to those who take the carts, keeping in mind that it's before the Economic Development Committee, which is a relevant place because it actually costs money. It costs you money because the stores are going to compensate for it by raising prices. So when you're doing something like that, it's important to keep that in mind. But I also ask those who take the carts to now keep in mind the children, because the children see it as a plaything and it's a very dangerous plaything when they go one side to the other. We have a new grocery store being built in the District D community, Canseco's. And we've actually had a conversation about that already, that the cost of these sort of items is something that has to be borne by somebody, and it's borne by the consumer. So this is such a great ordinance, and it goes along with what we've been doing as a council to address some long outstanding issues. It may not seem like it, but we've been making some progress relative to some of the illegal dumping. I'm saying that to the public. I'm just telling you that there has been progress. There's been progress under the bridges, for example. The frustration is that when we make progress, people come back and do the same thing again. But we're going to address that with increased penalties and working on taking the vehicles of people who are involved with that. But I just want to go back to the most important point is thank you very much, New Orleans East Matters. Thank you, Councilman Thomas Moreno. I'd like to be added as a co-author. We have grocery stores in our district that we talked about it already. But I want to say, in addition to the economic side, please, those who take these carts, remember the implications and the effect that they have on children. Take it beyond the economics and just be fair and also be cognizant of that as a possibility. Injury to children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. Any last comments from you before we get to online? All right. Our online comment before we close this out, please. And we have one other? Oh, yeah, come on. Well, that's all right. Fill out the card out.
Hello, I'm also nervous.
That's all right.
Yeah, so really interesting quality of life issue. Interesting to hear about it. It sounds like the ordinance is mostly focused on the business owners to take some responsibility over that. I am somewhat concerned about the people who do take the carts. A lot of them are unhoused or similarly vulnerable. And, I think the accountability is really important. Oh, I'm Romy LaCour with Housing NOLA.
We got you.
And yeah, so it would be preferable that some nuance be taken with dealing with people who are illegally taking these carts. Obviously, you don't want to be too lenient because then nobody cares, but to put too much pressure on already vulnerable people, I think you just have a more nuanced approach. But generally, it sounds good. You could add any detail to what your impressions are related to that.
Yeah,
case.
think that brings us, before we get the online comment, Dominique Lang from my office to talk about some of the provisions and some of the last minute recommendations that we've gotten from the administration and moving forward. Dominique.
Yes, good morning, council members. We received some requests from the administration this morning to make some amendments to this ordinance, one of which is to change the chapter in which the ordinance will be placed. It's currently set in chapter 146, and the administration has advised that it's better suited for chapter 66, where the nuisance code is. So all of the chapters that are currently addressed, and you will receive this amendment for Thursday's agenda to be voted on, but we just wanted to share them with you with an opportunity to know why once you see the amendments printed on the agenda. So the chapter will be changed to chapter 666 in the nuisance code to deal with the public and private property. And there's also going to be amendment to the premises definition. Within the premises definition, we have any sidewalks adjacent to the establishment. And the administration has shared that it creates a conflict in the ordinance where public property and private property are referenced. So that definition will be amended to delete sidewalks adjacent to the business establishment, as that is outside of the business. And we want to make sure that the businesses, in fact, keep the carts within their premises and how they affect the language therein. The only other addition that would be left is that a definition of electronic motor shopping carts will be added, as those are shopping carts as well. And that has been part of the nuisances that we have been finding around the businesses, that not only the push shopping carts, but the motorized one as well. So a definition will be added. And again, all of this will be presented to you for Thursday's council meeting, but we just wanted to make sure you had the information before you just saw the amendments on the agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Online comments, please.
So the first and only online comment comes from Justina Boyd. They are in the paid representative and they are in opposition. I would like to express a concern I have with this ordinance that could have a negative impact on economic development in the East. With the East having some of the largest amounts of land prime for development, these large fines to businesses could potentially deter businesses from wanting to invest in New Orleans East particularly. I respectfully urge you council members to consider the economic development consequences this could have on District E. That completes the comment.
Thank you. Any business that's willing to leave their carts all over our community, where we live and in our streets, we welcome them to choose other locations for their business. Before we close this out, I'd like to give kind of like the chronological order of carts. You leave your car, you go in the store, you get a cart, you get the cart, you walk down the aisle, you put your groceries, as we make groceries, we put them in a cart, we go to the register, we check them out, we go to our car. As we leave our car, many of the carts, they still remain in the parking lot. The carts go from the parking lot after they leave the primary business that's responsible for them. They go from the lot to blocking our streets, our public right-of-ways, and our sidewalks. And then this is the most amazing thing about living in the city now where this problem is. Not only are you surprised to see your cart blocking your sidewalk, blocking your street, and blocking your right-of-way, but one of the most disturbing things, and this is why the municipality has to get involved, and especially for advocates of many of the people around the house, one of the most disturbing things is to see your car being pushed down your street with your stuff in it, with your children's toys in it, with the stuff that came out of your garage, or out of your backyard, the stuff that you work real hard for. And then the other most disturbing thing about it is that when you see that one cart filled with your stuff, and then the next cart has your neighbor's stuff, and then the other cart has your other neighbor's stuff, and it's being sold or peddled or auctioned at a corner. You know, at some point, I think we've lost a bit of sensitivity to the people who work hard every day to keep their stuff. It's like they're an afterthought now. It's like the impositions that they experience now are also not just an afterthought, but that they should not only not consider their families first, not consider their communities first, but it's almost like they're not even second. And I agree that there has to be some balance. We have to consider the lives of the people, many of them who legitimately believe they take these carts so that they can have space for their stuff because they don't have a place for their stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody's stuff needs to be with the people who are responsible for it. And all we want is the carts, the businesses' stuff, to be back with the businesses while they're controlling their stuff. Do we need to move adoption of this at all?
No, we were just discussing it.
Thank you, Councilmember, Madam President, Economic, back to you
Sounds good. Yeah.
for this stuff.
And I wish we could put it on the consent agenda, but since we've got some amendments, we can't do that. So it'll be up for a final vote with the amendments coming up on Thursday.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, may I make one comment?
Absolutely.
And look, Councilman Thomas is the best one to conclude with this, but every once in a while, I feel the need to respond to an online comment.
We've designated you as the great concluder.
Because I do respond to the online. People say don't respond to the online, but it's important to recognize that this is not a negative for New Orleans East or for any business. It's important to recognize that you only fined if you fail to respond to notices. So it's not like that we found a cart on a certain boulevard and we're issuing you a $250 fine. The bottom line is that you're given an opportunity to respond. And also it's important to recognize that you as a business owner, especially if you have cameras, you have the right to refuse service to someone who takes your products. So it's important to recognize that those things can happen before you get to the point where you're fined. And I just want to make it clear that we're not about trying to run any businesses out. I encourage any business who's looking to consider our community for a grocery store to consider it and recognize that this is a good move. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. With that, motion to adjourn by Councilmember Morel. Can I get a second, please? Seconded by Councilmember Green and thirded by Councilmember Thomas. All in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.